After denying his crimes for so many years, Bundy finally confessed when no one expected. But not because his conscience finally got to him. Not because he wanted to make peace with his victims' families. Not even because he found God on death row. Ted Bundy confessed because he was running out of time. And he thought he could trade murder confessions like poker chips to save his own life. This is the story of the most famous serial killer in American history and the confession that was really just one last desperate con game. Welcome back to the second part of the top 10 most shocking crime confessions in America, a series where we covered 10 cases where criminals confessed to their crimes when no one expected. If you missed the first part, go back and watch. Now to the story of one of America's most dangerous serial killers, Ted Bundy. For over a decade, Ted Bundy had been America's golden boy of serial killers. Handsome, charming, intelligent. He looked like the guy you'd want your sister to date. He acted like someone who could never hurt a fly. And that's exactly why he was so dangerous. From 1974 to 1978, young women started disappearing across multiple states. Beautiful college students with long dark hair parted down the middle. They'd vanish from campuses, parking lots, beaches. Just gone without a trace. Bodies started turning up months later in remote areas. Beaten, strangled, worse. The victims all looked eerily similar, like the killer had a specific type. Police knew they had a serial killer on their hands, but they couldn't catch him. This guy was smart. He left very little evidence and seemed to know exactly how to avoid getting caught. They arrested him for kidnapping. Then more charges came. Murder charges from different states started piling up. And through it all, Ted Bundy maintained his innocence. "I didn't kill anyone," he told reporters. "This is all a mistake. I'm being framed." He didn't just deny the charges. He made denying them into a full-time job. He studied law, represented himself in court, gave interviews to anyone who would listen. Bundy turned his trials into a circus. He was charming, articulate, convincing. People started doubting whether this handsome law student could really be a cold-blooded killer. Some women even fell in love with him. They'd show up to his trials like it was a rock concert. They'd write him letters, visit him in prison. Bundy ate up the attention. But the evidence kept mounting. DNA evidence, witness testimony, physical evidence. Courts in multiple states convicted him of murder. Still, Bundy never confessed, never admitted guilt. He appealed every conviction, fought every sentence. For years, he maintained he was innocent. Then came 1989. Bundy had been on Florida's death row for over a decade. His appeals were exhausted. His lawyers were running out of options. The state of Florida set an execution date, January 24, 1989. No more delays. No more appeals. Ted Bundy was finally going to die. That's when everything changed. Just days before his scheduled execution, Bundy suddenly wanted to talk. Not to reporters this time. To police, to FBI agents. To anyone who would listen to what he had to say about unsolved murders. "I'm ready to tell the truth," he told his lawyers. "But I need more time." What happened next was the most calculated confession in criminal history. Bundy started admitting to murders. Not just the ones he'd been convicted of, but dozens more. Murders across multiple states that had never been solved. "I killed her in Washington in 1974, he'd tell investigators. "Her name was Georgine. I can tell you where I left the body. The girl in Colorado? That was me too. I can give you details only the killer would know." One by one, he confessed to over 30 murders. Cases that had been cold for years suddenly had answers. But here's the thing. Bundy wasn't confessing out of guilt. He was trading information for time. Every confession meant another meeting with investigators. Every meeting meant another delay. Every delay meant more time alive. He was literally using murder confessions as currency to buy himself extra days on Earth. Investigators knew what he was doing, but they played along. These families deserved answers. These cases deserved to be solved. So they let Bundy string them along. Day after day, he'd confess to another murder, provide another detail, reveal another location. The execution got delayed, then delayed again. Bundy was getting exactly what he wanted. But the state of Florida had enough. They weren't going to let a serial killer manipulate the system indefinitely. On January 24, 1989, despite his ongoing confessions, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair. His last words weren't an apology to his victims' families. They weren't a plea for forgiveness. They were instructions to his lawyer about appealing his sentence. Even facing death, Bundy was still trying to con his way out of it. In those final days, he confessed to over 30 murders. But investigators believe the real number was much higher. Some estimates put it at over 100 victims. Ted Bundy took most of his secrets to the grave because his confessions weren't about justice or closure. They were about buying time. Case 7. Derek Medina, the Facebook killer. I'm going to prison or death sentence for killing my wife. Love you guys. Miss you guys. Take care, Facebook people. You will see me in the news. That's an actual Facebook post. Posted by Derek Medina on August 8, 2013, right after he murdered his wife. But that wasn't even the most shocking part of his post. Along with that message, he uploaded a photo. A photo of his wife's dead body lying on their kitchen floor. This is the story of how social media became a confession booth for murder. Derek Medina was a 33-year-old actor wannabe living in Miami. He'd been married to Jennifer Alfonso for about a year, but their relationship was a disaster from day one. They fought constantly. About money, about his acting career that wasn't going anywhere, about everything and nothing. On the morning of August 8, 2013, they have another fight. But this time it goes too far. According to Medina's later testimony, Jennifer starts hitting him during their argument. He claims she grabbed a knife and threatened him. So he goes upstairs, gets his gun, comes back down and shoots her 8 times. Jennifer Alfonso dies on their kitchen floor. Now, most people who just committed murder would do one of several things. Call 911, run away. Hide the body, call a lawyer. Derek Medina does something that had never been done before in the history of crime. He takes out his phone, opens Facebook, and starts typing. But first, he takes a picture of his dead wife lying in a pool of blood. Then he uploads it. The Facebook post goes live at 11:11 a.m. Within minutes, his friends and family are seeing a photo of a murder scene in their newsfeed, right between vacation photos and cat videos. People think it's fake at first. Maybe a scene from one of his amateur acting projects. Maybe some sick joke. But then they read the post more carefully. The details are too specific. The photo looks too real. His friends start commenting immediately. Derek, what did you do? Please tell me this is fake. Call the police right now. Some people share the post, trying to get it more attention so someone will call police. Others start calling 911 themselves. Meanwhile, Derek isn't answering any of the comments. He's not responding to phone calls. He's just gone. But here's the crazy part. He's not running from police. He's not trying to cover up his crime. He drives to his family's house and calmly tells them what he did, like he's discussing what he had for breakfast. Then he drives himself to the police station and turns himself in. When detectives ask him why he posted the photo on Facebook, his answer is chilling in its simplicity. I wanted people to see that I was forced to defend myself. He actually thought posting a photo of his wife's dead body would make people sympathetic to his situation. During the investigation, more details come out about Derek Medina that make his Facebook confession even more disturbing. He was obsessed with fame. He'd written several self-published books about zombies and end-times prophecies. He'd made low-budget movies that nobody watched. He constantly posted about wanting to be famous. In a twisted way, murdering his wife and posting it on Facebook was his biggest acting role ever. Finally, people were paying attention to him. The Facebook post stayed online for about 5 hours before the platform removed it. But by then, it had been screenshot and shared thousands of times. Derek Medina had achieved the fame he always wanted. Just not the way he probably imagined. At his trial in 2017, Medina claimed self-defense. He said Jennifer attacked him first, that he had no choice but to shoot her. The jury didn't buy it. They saw the Facebook post not as evidence of self-defense, but as proof of how cold and calculated he was after the murder. Think about it. Your wife is dead on the floor, and your first instinct is to take a photo and post it online? The jury convicted him of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison. During sentencing, Jennifer's family members spoke about how the Facebook post made their grief even worse. Not only did they lose their daughter and sister, but her death became a viral sensation. Her final moments were turned into social media content. Derek Medina's Facebook confession was more than just admitting to murder. It was turning murder into entertainment. He didn't just kill his wife. He made her death go viral. In prison interviews, Medina still maintains he was defending himself. He still doesn't seem to understand why people were so upset about the Facebook post. "I was just being honest," he says. "I wanted people to know the truth." The truth is, Derek Medina got exactly what he always wanted, people talking about him. But now those conversations are happening while he sits in a prison cell for the rest of his life, and his wife is dead. The Facebook killer proved that in the social media age, even murder confessions can go viral. But some kinds of fame aren't worth having. Case 8. Christopher Watts, the polygraph confession. "I didn't hurt my family. I would never hurt my family." Christopher Watts said those words on live television in August 2018, standing on his front porch in Colorado. His pregnant wife Shanann and their 2 young daughters, Bella and Celeste, had been missing for days. He looked like a worried husband and father desperately searching for his family. He was lying. 3 days later, he would confess to killing all 3 of them, but not because his conscience got to him, because a machine caught him in his lies. This is the story of how a polygraph test broke one of the most shocking family annihilation cases in recent history. August 13, 2018, Shanann Watts comes home from a business trip to find her house empty. Or so it seems. Her friend Nicole drops her off around 2 a.m. after a delayed flight. Shanann is 15 weeks pregnant with their 3rd child. She's tired, probably just wants to get to bed. She never makes it upstairs. By that afternoon, Shanann hasn't shown up to a doctor's appointment. Her friend Nicole goes to check on her. The house is locked. Shanann's car is in the garage, but nobody's answering the door. Nicole calls police. When officers arrive, they meet Christopher Watts. He's calm, cooperative, seems genuinely concerned about his missing family. "I have no idea where they could be," he tells police. This isn't like Shanann at all. He explains that he left for work early that morning. When he came home, his wife and daughters were just gone. No explanation, nothing. Police start investigating immediately. They interview neighbors, check security cameras, look for any sign of where the family might have gone. Christopher appears on local news, pleading for his family's safe return. He looks directly into the camera with tears in his eyes. "Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come home, we love you." The performance is convincing, almost, but investigators start noticing small things. Christopher's story has tiny inconsistencies. His timeline doesn't quite match up, his emotional responses seem off. They ask him to come in for questioning. August 15, 2018, Christopher Watts sits in a small police interview room. Detective Tammy Lee and Agent Graham Coder start asking questions. Christopher sticks to his story. He went to work early, came home to an empty house, has no idea where his family is. The detectives push harder. They've been analyzing his phone records, his financial statements, his internet searches. Things aren't adding up. Then they mention the polygraph test. "Would you be willing to take a lie detector test?" Detective Lee asks, "Just to help us eliminate you as a suspect?" Christopher agrees immediately. "Too quickly, maybe. Of course, I'll do whatever it takes to find my family." The polygraph examiner hooks Christopher up to the machine. Wires, sensors, monitors. The test begins. "Did you cause the disappearance of your family?" "No." The machine shows deception. "Do you know where your family is?" "No." Deception again. Question after question, the polygraph indicates that Christopher Watts is lying about everything. When the test is over, the examiner doesn't even need to analyze the results. The deception is so clear, so obvious that everyone in the room knows. Detective Lee sits back down across from Christopher. "You failed the polygraph miserably." Christopher's whole demeanor changes. The worried husband act falls away like a mask being removed. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he says quietly. And then he starts talking. "I was having an affair. Shanann found out. We had a fight." He describes that night in horrifying detail. How he strangled Shanann in their bedroom. How his daughters came in asking where mommy was. "What did you do with the girls?" Detective Lee asks. Christopher's voice stays flat, emotionless. "I took them to my worksite. I couldn't leave them alone." He admits to killing 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste at the oil field where he worked. Then he stuffed their bodies into oil tanks. The confession goes on for hours. Christopher describes every detail like he's giving directions to the grocery store. No emotion. No tears. No remorse. The detectives are horrified, not just by what he did, but by how he's describing it. "You killed your entire family," Detective Lee says at one point. "Your wife was pregnant." "Those were your children." Christopher just shrugs. "I know." When news of his confession breaks, the public is shocked. This wasn't some random violent criminal. This was a suburban dad who seemed normal, loving, ordinary. The case becomes a media sensation. People can't understand how someone could kill their own family and then lie about it so convincingly. But what disturbed people most was how Christopher confessed. No breakdown, no emotional collapse. Just cold, calculated details delivered like he was discussing the weather. During his sentencing, Christopher was given life in prison without parole. 5 life sentences. The families of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste spoke at the hearing. They talked about the lives that were lost, the future that was stolen. Christopher Watts is now serving his life sentence in a Wisconsin prison. He still gets letters from people fascinated by his case. But he'll never again get to pretend to be the loving husband and father he played on television. Because sometimes the machine knows the truth even when the man won't admit it. Case 9. Stephen McDaniel, the creepy TV interview. "She was very nice, very sweet. I hope they find her." Stephen McDaniel said those words to a local news reporter in June 2011. He was talking about his missing neighbor, Lauren Giddings, a law student who had vanished from their apartment complex in Georgia. He stood there in front of the cameras looking like a concerned friend, answering questions about Lauren, hoping she'd be found safe. But there was something deeply unsettling about that interview. Something that made viewers' skin crawl without knowing exactly why. Maybe it was his weird, robotic voice. Maybe it was how his eyes seemed completely dead behind his glasses. Maybe it was the way he talked about Lauren like she was already gone. Whatever it was, that interview became one of the creepiest pieces of footage in true crime history. Because viewers were watching a killer pretend to care about his own victim. This is the story of how a TV interview became a confession in disguise. June 26, 2011. Lauren Giddings, a 27-year-old law student at Mercer University, goes missing from her apartment in Macon, Georgia. Lauren is smart, responsible, about to graduate law school. She's not the type to just disappear without telling anyone. Her friends report her missing when she doesn't show up for plans. Police start investigating immediately. They interview everyone in the apartment complex, including Stephen McDaniel, who lives right next door to Lauren. Stephen is a fellow law student. Quiet, awkward, keeps to himself mostly. He tells police he barely knew Lauren, maybe saw her around the complex occasionally. "I heard some noise from her apartment a few days ago," he tells investigators. "But I figured it was just normal apartment sounds." Police don't suspect him. He seems genuinely concerned about Lauren, offers to help however he can. Then the local news station, WMAZ, shows up to cover the missing person story. They're interviewing residents, trying to get information about Lauren. The reporter approaches Stephen McDaniel. He agrees to an on-camera interview. What happens next becomes legendary in true crime circles, but for all the wrong reasons. Stephen starts talking about Lauren, and immediately something feels off. His voice is monotone, robotic. He shows no real emotion despite talking about his missing neighbor. "She seemed very nice from my interaction with her," he says, staring directly into the camera with blank eyes. The reporter asks if he's worried about her. "I mean, it's concerning that someone could just disappear like that," Stephen responds. No urgency in his voice, no genuine concern. Just flat, emotionless words. But the creepiest part comes when the reporter asks what he hopes happens next. Stephen pauses for a long moment, still staring at the camera. Then he says, "I just hope they find her and that she's okay." But he trails off like he knows something he's not saying. The interview lasts less than 2 minutes, but it's enough to make viewers deeply uncomfortable. Comments start appearing online about how strange Stephen seemed, how something was wrong with his demeanor. People start calling him creepy and suspicious. Some viewers even call police to report that something seemed off about the guy in the interview. But police are focused on other leads. They don't pay much attention to internet comments about a weird TV interview. Then, on June 30th, 4 days after the interview, a maintenance worker finds human remains in a trash bin behind the apartment complex. It's Lauren Giddings. She's been dismembered. Police immediately focus on the apartment complex residents. Who had access? Who would know about the trash bins? They bring Stephen McDaniel in for more questioning. This time they're not treating him like a helpful neighbor. They're treating him like a suspect. Under pressure, Stephen's story starts falling apart. His timeline doesn't match. His explanations don't make sense. Then police search his apartment and find evidence connecting him to Lauren's murder. Computer searches about dismemberment, cleaning supplies, tools. Faced with the evidence, Stephen McDaniel confesses. He admits to breaking into Lauren's apartment, killing her, dismembering her body, and disposing of the remains. The confession is detailed and horrifying. But what makes it even more disturbing is when investigators realize something. Stephen gave that TV interview after he had already killed Lauren and disposed of her body. He stood in front of those cameras knowing exactly where Lauren was and what had happened to her. He looked directly into the lens and lied to thousands of viewers. That interview wasn't a concerned neighbor hoping for good news. It was a killer enjoying his secret. He wasn't acting like someone worried about a missing person. He was acting like someone who knew exactly what happened and was enjoying the performance. Stephen McDaniel was sentenced to life in prison without parole in 2014. But that TV interview lives on as one of the most chilling examples of a killer hiding in plain sight. Thousands of people watched that interview when it first aired. They saw a strange, awkward guy talking about his missing neighbor. What they were really watching was a murderer giving a confession disguised as an alibi. Stephen McDaniel's TV interview proved that sometimes the most disturbing confessions aren't the ones given in police stations. Sometimes they're given on live television, with the killer smiling for the cameras while his victim's body lies in a trash bin just yards away. Case 10. Issei Sagawa, the cannibal who walked free. June 11, 1981, Paris, France. A young Japanese man named Issei Sagawa invites his classmate, a Dutch woman named Renee Hartevelt, over to his apartment. She's 25 years old, beautiful and intelligent, a student of literature, fluent in several languages. She thinks she's coming over to help him translate some poetry. What she doesn't know is that Sagawa has been planning this moment for years. From the outside, Sagawa doesn't look dangerous. He's small, frail, barely over 5 feet tall. People describe him as shy, awkward, almost harmless. But inside, he carries a fantasy so disturbing it doesn't seem real. He wants to eat human flesh. And not just any human. He wants to consume a woman, someone tall, healthy, and beautiful. Someone who represents everything he feels he isn't. That night, when Renee sits at his desk, Sagawa takes out a rifle. He points it at the back of her neck and pulls the trigger. She dies instantly. What he does next shocks the world. Instead of calling for help, Sagawa begins to undress her body. He takes out a knife. Slowly, methodically, he cuts into her flesh. He later says he wanted to absorb her energy, to make her beauty a part of him. Over the next 2 days, he eats parts of Renee's body. He cooks some of it. He eats some raw. He photographs the process. He even saves pieces in his fridge for later. When he's done, he places the rest of her remains in 2 suitcases. His plan is to dump them in a remote lake. But Sagawa is clumsy. In the middle of the night, he drags the heavy suitcases to a nearby park and leaves them by the water. Witnesses see him. Later that day, police open the cases and discover what's inside. The horror begins to unfold. Sagawa doesn't run. He doesn't fight. When police come to question him, he confesses immediately, calmly, casually, as if he's been waiting for someone to ask. Yes, he says. I killed her. I ate her. It was my fantasy. The case seems open and shut. A brutal murder, a full confession, evidence everywhere. Surely this man will never see the outside world again. But then comes the twist. French doctors examine Sagawa and declare him legally insane. He is unfit to stand trial. Instead of prison, he's sent to a psychiatric hospital. For 2 years, he stays there, under observation. Then, in 1984, French authorities make a decision that shocks even seasoned investigators. They deport him back to Japan. In Japan, doctors examine him again. This time, the findings are different. They say he's not insane. He understands exactly what he did. He's fully aware of his actions. But because the French courts had already dismissed the charges, Japanese courts can't retry him. The evidence is gone. Legally, their hands are tied. And just like that, Issei Sagawa walks free. Most killers who escape punishment fade into obscurity, hiding from the public eye. Sagawa does the opposite. He embraces the spotlight. He becomes a minor celebrity in Japan, openly talking about his crime. He gives interviews, he writes books. He even appears in magazines, sometimes posing with raw meat as if mocking the world. He describes in detail what Renee tasted like. He explains how he cooked her flesh, what parts were tender, what parts were chewy. He doesn't hide his desires. In fact, he admits he still fantasizes about cannibalism. Instead of being locked away, he's invited onto talk shows. Instead of being punished, he profits from his crime. To many, it feels like justice has failed twice, once in France and again in Japan. For decades, Sagawa lives in Tokyo, a free man. He paints. He writes. He gives lectures. He's called the Cannibal Killer, the Kobe Cannibal, and the Celebrity Cannibal. His name becomes infamous in true crime history. But fame doesn't last forever. By the 2010s, his health begins to fail. He suffers from diabetes, a stroke, and is eventually confined to a wheelchair. On November 24, 2022, Issei Sagawa dies of pneumonia at age 73. He had lived more than 40 years as a free man after killing Renee Hartevelt. The case remains one of the most disturbing in modern history, not just because of the crime itself, but because of what followed. A young woman lost her life in a brutal act of cannibalism. Her killer confessed openly. And yet, he was never punished. Instead, he became a celebrity. The world will never forget the name Issei Sagawa. Not because justice was served, but because justice was denied. Tell us in the comments section which case shocks you the most. Subscribe to our channel for more chilling stories that you won't find anywhere. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.